And Norm, you've been talking to us. Anything good going on in your world?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're staying busy. We keep our board filled up. Money's flowing. Things are good.
Awesome.
My biggest problem is finding people to do the work and do quality work. So
yes, and we're going to be talking, that's what we're going to be talking about a lot here today. And I think probably everybody on this call, and I can probably talk on behalf of the majority of my clients, are right there with you, finding quality employees, and not just that, but getting them on board and up to speed. So,
absolutely.
Definitely preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
yeah.
Anybody else? What wins are you guys having in your businesses? I know good things have been happening, so give us the scoop. Mo, anything been happening up in Mount Laurel?
Well, I see.
Nothing this week, really. But business is going as usual.
Okay.
Well, at least no bad things, sometimes that's a win, when it's like, I don't have anything spectacular, but nothing bad has happened. So good. Well, I see that Miss Stephanie, even though we can't see her gorgeous face, I see that she is here. She's with My Plumber. I talked to them yesterday, and we're looking at the numbers. They're still definitely in a stage of growth, still experiencing some growing pains. Still just, one man out in the field. And so we're moving past that. We were really looking at the numbers yesterday and for January. And even after paying off a big chunk of debt that they were trying to pay off, even after their truck broke down and they had to invest a ton of money into the business, they ended up with around a 10% profit margin, even after, having all of those extra expenses and paying off quite a bit of debt. And so we were really excited to look at the numbers and see that, with January historically being a slow month. So,
Ooh, man, yeah, that's amazing.
Big wins there. Lots more to come with those two. Power couple.
Well, we're a few minutes in, so I think we're just going to go ahead and get started here. So guys, welcome. This is our weekly group call this week. My name is Harley, and we're going to do some tag team hosting with Nicole, one of the other star coaches, and Bryce as well. But what's on the agenda for today? Big teaching moment topic that I'll be leading on is building a winning workplace culture. Such a huge topic for anybody to be really good at. And then Bryce is going to come in with best practices for onboarding employees. He's got some tangible tools for you to start using today, and you'll start working on it in case you don't have this or need to make additions. And then there's open Q&A as always for any burning fires that are going on, which, speaking of, life happens. So are there any burning fires or issues, hopefully not as bad as this house, but any issues going on with your guys' business that we need to address today? Going once, going.
I feel like Norm kind of mentioned one earlier today, earlier in the meeting, just, trying to keep staffed up is a burning fire. We covered a little bit of that in our meeting last week, but I think that can kind of be reiterated this week as well, the importance of running a hiring system and kind of all of the power moves to consistently get applicants in.
Yeah, we'll jump in back into that with Norm specifically at the end of this call. But are there any other people where we need to touch up with them before we leave today? Let's see. Nope, nobody's jumping.
Yeah. And feel free to post it in the chat, even if throughout this time something comes up, we put it in the chat and we'll circle back to it at the end for sure. All right.
Okay, awesome. Well, we went over some of the business wins, but let's go over building a winning workplace culture. And when I was tasked to talk about this week, I was thinking to myself, the times that I had gone over this with some of my clients. And I thought back to a meeting I had with a company called Advanced Fire and Safety. They do like fire safety testing in like restaurants, industrial places over in Nebraska. And hiring, like for many people, had been an issue where not only is it a problem to get candidates in, but it's also just a problem to keep them in the company. And, you know, some of these people, they started off really well. Like in the interview process, they looked great. Heck, even in the first week to month, it's a honeymoon season. So they're really doing well to prove themselves. But then 2 months, 3 months down the road, people get casual. They start to get missing details. They're not totally clicking, and they end up looking for the next shiny object, the next job. I mean, the stats are crazy out there about how many people are switching jobs frequently. And so a problem for us business owners, or y'all business owners, to figure out is, hey, how do we set up a winning workplace culture, even if our company is a plumbing company, or it's an insurance sales company, or it's a remodeling company? And so when I talked with Advanced RN Safety, I gave them 4 points that you guys can take notes on today and ask your coaches about later, or ask in a Q&A at the end of this, about how to make sure you're building a winning workplace culture. First of all, last week, Robert did a great talk about how to run a perfect meeting. And I got to lean into that even more, because with each business owner running a weekly meeting consistently, where it's a great meeting, meaning that it's positive, it's well organized, you're enthusiastic, you're bringing the energy with leading the meeting. And as well, I don't want to harp on this, you're actually having some fun. There are funny moments in the meeting where you keep things lighthearted. Each week, this is your time to stay on top of any and all your people you're working with. And it's also a time to make sure that no matter what's going on in the business, you give yourself and your team a time to just, okay, time out here. How did this past week go? Okay, how's this current week going? What's the plan for this week? Where can we all improve? Who's doing a really good job? Because when you have that time every week that you have as a staple in your business, you'll find that eventually you'll wonder why it was never a thing in your company.
Yeah. And to add to that, even too, Harley, most of the guys that we work with, most of you guys yourselves, if you have people that are just taking the truck from their house to the job site and you never see them, how can you possibly build a culture in a company if you guys don't ever spend any time together, right? Most of you are probably, and I know that you are because I meet with some of you, but you're great people. You'd be awesome to go out and get a drink with, but nobody ever knows that if they never see you. And so this is one of the key ways to really get that started.
So running a great team meeting. And if you need notes on that, you can watch last week's group coaching call. You can put in the chat if you want to watch that. We'll send you the YouTube link, or assign a time with your coach, but run a great team meeting. Next thing is have regular check-ins with your employees. As Bryce said, the weekly team meeting is a time to make sure to have that check-in, but you want to try and do that throughout the week. And what was so funny is when I was trying to find images about this, I searched on Google construction owner and employee, just for like photos about this. And here's the first one that came up. All right, are you serious? It's a owner yelling at an employee. And like, this is the very first photo when it comes to construction owners with their employees. Like, this is some stigma that's going on. And sure enough, you got a bunch of these other photos that are just hilarious stock images, where this one, I don't even know what's going on here. What are they dead? What's happening here? So obviously, this is not healthy. We're not going to keep people if we're always on their butt, always telling them how every time they're doing something wrong. And so we've got to change how we talk to our staff. And a key way that we do this, and other people phrase it differently, but we call it the hug, kick, hug method. Hug, kick, hug. And some circles call it a sandwich method for confrontation. But Essentially, you got to start with something positive. That's why in weekly team meetings, you start with wins. Our meetings, we start with wins because you start on a good note. And so you start with a hug saying, hey, man, you did a great job last week stepping up in this way. And I want to commend you for that, first of all. But then you come in with the kick, because when you hug, that'll soften the blow of the kick that's coming. And you give them the critique that they need. And along the way, you help make sure that whenever you're critiquing them, that it's in their best interest for what their goals are all the time. And that's what you do with the second hug, is you make sure when you leave that conversation, you're making sure that you're not leaving it in a way where the guy's pissed off at you or they're steaming at you, but they're in agreement with what you've said, and you've stated goals of how they will improve after that conversation. And you make it so good, you'll have lots of these every week, but this is how you keep people winning and keep people engaged in the day-to-day monotony of the job. So regular check-ins with your employees. Third, always run the hiring system, because you know what? There are some people where they are just not a good fit. They started off well, but they've had a habit of leaving jobs here and there, and we took a chance on them. And you know what? They're just not a good fit for our culture. And so we talked about the hiring system a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure many of you have tried to run this, but this is why you keep it going, even if you are fully staffed, because you don't want to be held hostage by people that are not winning or don't care about having a great time at work. So always run the hiring system. And then lastly, we got to really be good at preaching the vision of where we want to go with the company. And not only with the company's growth, but also their individual growth as an employee. And so, in these weekly meetings, that's a great time to do this. But even throughout the week, you remind your team, hey, I've got these goals for the company. I have this vision that may look way greater than you can imagine, but I've got this vision of where I want to take this company. And you know what? You should be excited about it, because here's why it's beneficial for you. People care about most what's going to benefit them. This is just human nature. And so we need to frame our vision for the company in a way that's always benefiting them. And some examples of this: pride in your work. People like it when they're good at what they do. They usually stick around at jobs and careers where they're good. So pride in work. It helps with their self-esteem to be really good at something. And if they're really good at something, they'll have relaxed management. You don't have to, if they're annoyed that you're checking up on them all the time, you could say, well, hey man, I'd love to not have to check on you all the time. But this is what I got to do because I want to make sure you're good. And then, with that, you get more flexibility with just working. If someone's really good and they're consistently stepping up, you can give them more leeway to take trips or just, whatever their goals are, you give them that flexibility because they've proven themselves to be good. And then last but obviously not least, greater earnings. And you want to turn these earnings, instead of just saying, hey, I'll bump your hourly from 20 to 23 per hour if we do these things. You want to point it to, okay, well, if I'm going from 20 to 23, what does that difference in $3 per hour mean to this person? And this is where you get a little deeper with your people, because you might find out that they got car payments going on, or they've got other life circumstances happening, or maybe you've gotten close enough where you find out that they're not really that great at savings. I remember in our company, in our team meetings, we spent 2 years, just every team meeting, the business owner is stressing the importance of saving your personal finances. And, at the beginning, there were only like 10% of people that, like, when they raised their hands, said that they saved personally in their finances. But the business owner, our leader, just kept going every week, bringing up this topic because he knows how important it is. And sure enough, by the end of it, everyone was doing it, and everyone becomes a healthier employee if they're more wise and sensible with their finances. And so it's not just them getting more money, but you want to help them figure out what are they going to do with this extra money where it actually benefits them. And lastly, we got to make these goals visible and clear. I'll preach you a good Bible verse about this. Habakkuk 2:2. The Lord answered and said, write the vision and make it clear on tablets, that he may run who reads it. Now it's crazy they had iPads back in Bible times, but
Wow.
you got
Nice.
sorry, bad jokes. Working on my dad jokes. But you got to write the vision and make it clear. And this is why it's so important we talk about systems and checklists and processes so much, because if you don't write it out and keep it clear and very visible and very specific too, then it's going to be hard for people to run with you and to follow you as a leader. And so with each of these things that we're talking about on building a winning workplace culture, your people, if you're really good at this and really consistent with it, they're going to start to feel like, even though it's a plumbing job, even if it's a remodeling job or insurance sales or whatever, they're going to say, you know what? Yeah, the work is good and it pays me well, but like, I'm becoming a better person as a result of working here, which is so crazy to anybody that's ever been an employee at companies.
Yeah, something related to this that I would even add to that, right? People will work harder for someone that they feel supported by, or that has their goals in mind. Something that our leaders at Redmond Growth talk about all the time is, hey, we want your next 2, 3, 4 jobs to be here. We want to be the place that the next 2, 3 things you're looking for in your career to be with us. And that comes through what we're doing with our company and advancing and stuff like that. But that's what keeps all-stars like Harley and Nicole on board in this company, is that we know that our future has something in store for us with the same company. So just casting the vision, making it clear.
And so with those 4 points there, we're always running the hiring system, preaching the vision, having regular check-ins, and running these weekly team meetings. You do those things consistently and adhere to them, you're going to have a much greater workplace culture with the people around you. They're going to want to stick around. And, you know, Bryce is going to get into a really important topic about how to start off the employee's time at the company strong. But I do just want to take a moment to, before sharing the screen, I want to take a moment to just ask if there are any questions or there are any stories about how you worked with an employee and they stuck around, or like situations you've learned from about this topic.
One example of a client that I can think of, and he's not on the call. His name's Dale Eads. He's with Arnold's Plumbing. But when we first started with him, it was just him. He was just a truck in a truck, just him out in the field. And now he has 3 trucks in the field, getting ready to add his 4th. Now that's happened over the course of 2 years. Building that team. He had opportunities to add on other employees, but chose to be very picky about who belongs in our culture, whose values are the same as the rest of my team. He's been super intentional about building his team of guys who he can trust with his customers, who he enjoys being around. And for him, that was more valuable than trying to grow really, really quickly and then end up with a bunch of employees who he can't trust or simply doesn't like. And now his core crew is so loyal to him. They are so protective over the company, over the culture. And it's allowed them to bring on that 4th guy and that 4th truck, and immediately see that guy really become part of the family very quickly. And so something to keep in mind, is we can't get so stuck in the growth oriented mindset that we lose the connection with our employees, that we lose that culture. Because that's really, your customers feel that. It's really a lot healthier for you to be around a group that you enjoy. And so wanted to share that with Arnold's Plumbing, Dale Eads. He's awesome. I see Patrick, did you raise your hand here, sir? Do you have a story to share?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's not a story, but I'd like to say, Harley, I appreciate you really diving in and talking a lot about just digging into lives of agents. Because when you start thinking about that, something that came to mind is just like how we all have like businesses and we have needs that we fill in our daily businesses. It's kind of cool to just think about as you're talking to the people you're working with, your employees or people that you build your culture around. It's important that you're tying the vision back to what they need. And so as you were talking about that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I need to start going back to the people I work with and say, hey, what are the needs that you have in your life? And let me show you how I can fill it. Because I remember way back when I was always told when I was doing sales is you're going to always be selling three things. You're going to sell a service, an idea, or a product. And when you think about this need that is being filled is an idea of filling some life event or life things that are happening in someone's life that's going to help them be fulfilled and tie them back to doing the best in their career. So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, yeah, no, thanks for speaking up, Patrick. You tell us for the group, what's your main line of work here, and what are you trying to grow to this year?
Perfect. I work with contractors. I work with insurance agents, and so a lot of what I'm working with is paying them back to their visions for their lives and things like that. So I'm working
as
directly.
a supplemental health insurance agent, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Supplemental insurance. So yeah, basically working with people. That's like, my main job is not only selling, but it's also helping the people that I work with be bought in and tied into culture. And so a lot of that has to go back to filling their needs and making sure that I tie their needs and their wants back to what we talk here is like the KPIs and what's going to help them get them closer to that.
Yeah, no, and it'll be exciting because I know, Patrick, you and I talked really about getting weekly meetings back going last week. So I'll be excited to see how this comes about in your company and the people you work with. So, all right, well, Bryce, why don't you take the mantle here and tell us, how do we get people started on the right foot?
Yeah, no, really good stuff on all of that. And I think in general, if you were to boil down what Redmond Growth is about, right, most people say systems and processes, and it really is. So why is it important? Why is it, a thing at all to make a rock solid onboarding process? People don't do this in the contracting industry. People just start, say, hey, do you know how to turn the wrench? Sure. And then you send them out on their way. But other people don't do this. Why would I? And that may be a question you're having, it may not be, but that's exactly why you should. It's because others don't. Your company is extraordinary, and you got to show that in any way that you can. The more that you have systems in place, it saves headaches in your own life. And it just shows your new hire that you got your act together as a company, right? You easily gain their confidence. You're demonstrating that you have an organized process from the get-go. People want to work in companies like that. The less that they have to think and figure out stuff on their own, the more people are going to feel comfortable and want to do more and more within that company. So this is really starting off on really the right foot. You properly set your expectations from the get-go. And so that way you're able to catch things before they even become an issue, right? If you imagine telling people from the first day, and you've done this enough times, most of you have been owning, operating businesses, you've been in other businesses yourself before for years. So you know how it works. You run into a lot of these situations. If you can resolve it before it even becomes a situation, right? How much better would that be for your life, for their life, for the profitability of your company, all these things included. And it also prevents important things that need to be covered that we can really easily forget. You know, telling a person how they get paid. How are we going to get your paycheck to you? Right? That's stuff that's really important, but a small detail that we may forget about in the onboarding process. And that little seed of bitterness could grow into more and more the longer that they're with the company. You know, okay, it's been 2 weeks and my new boss still hasn't told me how I'm getting paid this week. You know, I don't know if that's going to come or not. Or maybe there was a delay and so their pay gets delayed by a week or so. And we all know what happens whenever we assume. I won't say more on that, but we all know what happens when we assume things. But the most important thing about this, why we care about having an onboarding process, why anybody cares about all the stuff that we do within Redmond Growth, all the things we're preaching to you week after week, it improves productivity, right? What's the most important thing that you want when you get a new employee? We got to get them trained. We got to get them onboarded and then get them out there doing the work so that they begin to produce more money than they cost as soon as possible, right? That's everybody's goal. Who wants an employee that costs them more than they make them? You can go and raise your hands, but I don't expect anybody to. So that's why it's important to build an onboarding process. And so we're going to make it really simple. There's only 4 steps here that we really want to harp on to make a rock solid onboarding process. And you can take these down as we go. We'll circle back to some of this at the end. But the first thing, very clearly, create an onboarding checklist. What does that look like? Some of you may already have done this in the past if you've been with us for a while. Some of you may never have. So start thinking about, okay, what does someone need to know whenever they start with us? Really, it's all about asking the question, what is everything this person needs to know in terms of payroll? How are they going to get paid? Do we have W-4s? Do we need to get them set up on a 401k? You know, software. Do we use a CRM that maybe other companies don't use? Are we using House Call Pro? Maybe they were using House Call Pro at another company, but the other company did a poor job of managing it, and you guys do it way better, right? Treat every situation like a fresh slate, but think about what makes a solid onboarding process. What is everything this person needs to know? A huge part of this, guys, is culture. That stuff that Harley was talking about at the beginning. When you set the culture for your company, you set the vision, you build an actual future with people that are going to stay. So Norm, this gets right at your question from the beginning of this call. You know, how do I get good people that are going to stay? Like Patrick was saying too, you're connecting people's goals to your company, right? The more that you do that, the more connected those things are. You're going to have people that want to do anything and everything they can for you. Another really good way to think about this too is why creating a checklist. You know, I know what people need to know whenever they come on. Well, pretty much with everything that we do, if something happens the right way, we want to make that happen again so that every time we do that thing, it's happening. And so we need to document it so that we can duplicate it. And that's a lot of what we talk about with Redmond Growth and building processes, building systems. If something good happens or something happens the right way, just document it and duplicate it. So an onboarding checklist can be super long. It can be really short. And these are just some other examples of the guys that we've worked with and their onboarding checklists. So you can see maybe it's only 3 or 4 items on there. Maybe it's a full page. But we also, at Redmond Growth, we take our own medicine, right? We practice what we preach. And so we do this too. And you'll see that, you know, our culture is in there. What are our core values? What is our relationship with our key vendors? What are the required reading materials? Before I even started at Redmond Growth, I had to read a book and essentially be prepared to do a book report, which coming from corporate America, my first job was with Pepsi. That was so foreign to me. Why would I do a book report for a company I'm not even getting paid for or paid by, you know? But it helped set the culture before I even stepped in the door. And it made me more committed to this company because I read this book. It was called Leadership and Self-Deception, which you see on this checklist. And it was about being in the box versus out of the box, something we've talked about in some of the past group calls. But it made me excited to start working at this company, to be honest. And so we practice what we preach. And these are just some examples, and we can build this for you. You and your coach can circle up, after this meeting and say, hey, I want to do this, and I've got my onboarding checklist kind of started. Let's hash it out, make it right, and then we'll put it into a documented thing. There's a little bit of magic that happens whenever you have a checklist that looks nice. For whatever reason, people seem to follow those checklists a lot better whenever they look nice versus just being words on a page. So that's the first thing, is building your onboarding checklist. And we'll circle back. That's going to be our do it now today, is starting to put together what it actually looks like. So the second thing is, as the owner of the company, or if you really need to, I'll give the exception to have your number two do this as well. But as the owner, block off 1 to 2 hours on your employee's first day to onboard them. It is so crucial, so important. Now, some of you may have the question, well, okay, I'm a little hesitant about that. I'm the most valuable person in my company. My time is worth a lot. Why would I invest so much into someone who may not stick? If I spend this much time with them, what am I losing out on? And that's a good, valid question. But I have another question to pose at you from a guy named Jim Cathcart, which he is best known for writing the book Relationship Selling, which I don't know if any of you read that, but essentially he was one of the first guys that came and talked about, getting away from this sleazy salesman type of salesmanship, and this concept of really getting to know the people that you're buying from. Kind of like you were talking about earlier, Patrick, is connecting people's life and their goals, right? You're selling an idea, you're selling a product or a service. So getting to know the person. Anyways, Jim Cathcart, in relation to onboarding people, he has this to say, which I think is a really piercing question. What happens to you and to your company if you don't invest in training this person and then you're stuck with them? So if you're hesitant about, why would I block off an hour or 2 hours of my time to onboard this new employee that may be here for a week, may even quit at the end of the day? We don't really know what they're worth yet. What happens if you don't? What happens if you don't? Another way to even think about this is whenever you as the owner are investing intentionally in this new person, what does that do for their perception of the company? They value you higher, they respect your leadership, they feel supported, they feel important. And just by default, people are going to work harder for someone that they feel supported by than someone that they merely fear, right? Just like Harley was talking about in these meetings earlier. If you come in and you're that guy that's yelling until someone literally dies and turns into a skeleton, then no one ever wants to do a job for a person like that. So that's the second thing, is blocking out an hour or 2 hours on their first day to really get them on board, set the culture, set the tone for the company so that you have people starting on the right foot every time. Okay, told you there were 4 things. We're on the third one, so we're almost there. Stay with me. But the third thing is to block off some time throughout the week to do some ongoing training or follow-up. People may need some clarification. An important thing to do that we would recommend is saying in that first onboarding session, right? You blocked off that first hour, 2 hours of their day. If you have a team that you have to get people started and on the road before you can get started on your own things for the day, then have the person come in an hour late, right? Get your current team on the road and moving, and then bring that person in. But in that initial meeting, set up follow-up for the rest of the week so that they know what to expect. It's a huge thing. If people know what to expect, they can prepare for it and they get behind it. And our fearless leader, Tim Redmond, our founder, chief commander-in-chief, he says this, that people need 1,000 nudges. We want to do as much as we can to solve problems before they become a problem. And this really happens when you set the tone from the beginning. You can't expect anybody to get it 100% after just one conversation. even if you're doing what we talk about, right? If you have an onboarding checklist too, you still can't expect people to have it 100% down from the beginning.
If I may, Bryce, I got a story about this.
Do it.
So a buddy of mine, when I went to college too, I had been here for a few months, and he had applied and looked like he got hired to work with us. So I was pretty excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a guy I know from ORU. He's going to be working with us. Great. Okay. Well, we have KPIs to make a certain amount of calls every day. And that KPI is 150 calls a day. And it might be a shocker to some of you. It's a shocker to him, because he came in that first day and he just like barely made it. It's like at the end of the day, he made it. He made the calls. It's like, okay, first objective done. He did it. But then like 2 days later, we kept, we have this KPI tracker to ask how he's doing, and we're working on him with these calls. And at the beginning of the third day, he comes in and he says, I'm not into this, man. I'm sorry. I can't do this. But the point of that is, like, let's say we onboarded him and gave him the task, and then we went about our own days doing what we were doing. Or Tim and Robert just did what they did, or us business owners, we got our own problems. And now, like a week, 2 weeks, a month later, we find out that this guy's getting nowhere near these KPIs, and he's just been a waste of our time and money. And so to your point there, Bryce and Tim's, people need 1,000 nudges. They need to be reminded, hey, this is what our expectation is.
Yeah, that's huge. Thanks for that, Harley. So something that is probably normal for a lot of the people that we're working with, especially in the contracting industry, is just kind of, figure it out, trial by fire. We'll throw you in the deep end, see how you do. It's probably normal, right? That's what you guys were used to when you started or were working for somebody else. But it's wrong. Not to mention ineffective for long-term success or scalability, right? You're going to waste a lot more time throwing people in if they have no idea what to expect, just like Harley was saying. And this is a side note for another conversation, but the best companies, if you think about, what's the ideal model? What could be the best way we do this? The best companies have regular ongoing training for technical skills or for anything that has to do with the culture of the company. A great example of this, A Better Plumber, you guys have maybe heard from them before if you were in these meetings, but one of the things that they do is every single week, at the end of the week, they have a technical training session to make sure that the guys have their skills up to par. Any questions they may have, it's more than their regular, daily huddles, but giving them actual training. Another company I work with, Clear Creek Plumbing and Gas, they do the same thing. And it's a selling point for your customers.
Well, I want to emphasize A Better Plumber. So These guys have about 18 trucks in the field. They're based out of Denver, Colorado. Their revenue grew 51% last year, and they only added 2 more trucks onto the field. So if that is what you need to get motivated to have this ongoing training, to have this weekly meetings, because that is how that happened for them, is investing that time into training, having that ongoing accountability, running through scenarios about how to handle customers, holding them accountable to checklists, setting expectations with our guys. It's that investing into your team, even if it means I'm not going, on Monday mornings, the trucks don't leave until noon. We have an all staff meeting, we have breakfast together, and I invest that time. If I could tell you that your company could grow 51% in revenue just by investing this time, it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, this is huge. So the last piece here is involving your team in the training or the assessment of this new employee, right? People are going to show a different version of themselves to the boss. No matter how approachable you are, they're going to show you a different one than they show you to their peers. We've got experience with this even internally, but hopefully it's not like this situation. It's not like Two-Face where people are giving you one side of themselves that's an angel, and another side that's the devil. But they're going to show you a different side, and you've got to be able to trust the team that you've built already to give you good feedback and to constantly build a better team, a better company. That's what the goal is in the long term. And related to this, there's a guy by the name of Ken Blanchard. He's a lot of you guys have probably heard of him, but he has this quote that I think is key to this. None of us is as smart as all of us. Get your team involved because it's going to be really important for you guys. Okay, so I'm off my soapbox here. We're getting into the do it now time. We got a couple of minutes left. So what I want to do right now, guys, is if you've already got an onboarding checklist, pull that sucker out, and you're probably going to make some enhancements to it. If you don't, just pull out a piece of paper. You're not going to finish this right now, but start the process. We want to get the ball moving every time we meet, whether it be the group Zoom calls, whether it's 20-minute focus, whether it's your one-on-ones. We want to get progress. We want to get action stuff moving forward. So pull out a piece of paper and think about when you bring somebody on board in your company, what is everything this person needs to know? If it's payroll, here's some ideas. W-4, pay schedule, direct deposit. What do they need to know to get started? If anybody's already done this with us, I think it'd be really helpful. Are these the things that you've put together on your own onboarding checklist? What are things that you would say usually get forgotten but need to be remembered? Anybody have any additions here? Feel free to jump in at any time. But what does this person need to know? Payroll. Okay, we got those there. Now, what about software? Do they need training in the CRM? How do we use it on actual house calls and stuff like that? Do they need to have an email? Do they need to have logins to get onto a calendar that connects to House Call Pro so that they know when to go where, right? What other softwares might they need to know? And then if you have regular meetings in your company, like you should, like we've preached, schedule those, set them up in their calendar so they know when they're happening. Schedule meetings, daily calendar. What does lunch look like? Do they get 30 minutes, an hour? What if they choose not to take a lunch? Do they get off early? Stuff like that. And then training. This gets into a lot of different stuff. What might they need to know within the company? How do I fill out a timesheet? Do I know what a service call checklist is like? How do I run through that? Home safety inspection, company sales process. What do we do? Do we say certain things in customer service? And then build out the culture. What are the values, your mentality that you expect people to have? What expectations can they have, right? Like we talked about earlier in casting the vision. Put it on your checklist. You don't have to think about it and remind yourself. It's a reminder right there on your onboarding checklist. Hey, what's the pathway to promotion? How can you get raises? Ultimately, how can they make more money? That's what motivates people easiest. So again, this is just a starting point, but we want to get the ball rolling. Keep working on this. Once you've got this started and you've got a good couple ideas, or maybe you want some more questions, use the 20-minute focus call with your coach. Set it up, get it done, put this process in motion. All right, guys. I think that covers everything here. So that said, Nicole, I think you had some burning fires, some questions that we may want to address. Anybody have any questions?
Few things. If you open up the chat, you're going to see that I put the Google Docs link where you can access previous videos. Last week, we covered how to run a meeting, a successful meeting with your team. I think the week before that, we ran through the hiring system. You're able to see what the calls are about and click on the one that is going to be more targeted specifically to what you are needing. We also have outlined, what sections of the call are covering what topic. So you don't have to listen to the whole thing if you just want to go in and get the nugget that you need. And so please take advantage of that Google document. I'm also getting ready to share another Google document link, just shared it in the chat. This is where you can book your 20-minute laser coaching call. What we are asking you guys to do today is to either pull out your onboarding checklist and make edits to it. You know, how can I enhance this? If you aren't sure, go ahead and book that 20-minute laser coaching call so that we can work on that with you. Or go ahead and on a Google Doc, a piece of paper, whatever's most comfortable to you, start outlining your onboarding checklist. Once you feel pretty good, it doesn't need to be perfect. Go ahead and book a 20-minute call with us through that link, and we will build it with you. What I would like to do now, guys, is either through the chat or either through you know, just unmute. We've got a pretty nice small group here. Just if you have any burning fire issues, questions, you know, comments, concerns, grievances, we want to open up the floor to you guys and try to get those addressed here in our last 10 minutes together.
Little burning fire situation after seeing the expectations from employees. I have two 1099 employees that we work with, labor guys. One of them, we pay them both the same. It's a day per day. They get paid per day. And one of them is an excellent worker. He just goes out there, gets there at 8, works his shift. And if he has to stay late, he'll stay late and just go home afterwards and show up the next day. No problem whatsoever. You tell him what to do, what he needs to do or expected for him to do during the day, and he'll knock it out. He'll take care of it. The other guy, on the other hand, he's asked already several times for a raise. He's not as motivated like the other guy, or I guess self-sufficient to like the other guy to complete the tasks. And we have to constantly be telling this other guy to be, okay, this is what you need to do now. This is what you need to do now. So constantly be on top of him. And yet he's every now and again, he's asking for a raise, or when can we talk about for a higher payment and all that. How do you approach a person like that when I guess I don't want to say he's not performing, because he does the work. It's just that I just don't know how to approach that conversation when they ask for a raise, and it's like, dude, come on, man. We're constantly on your ass, trying to get stuff done and all that.
Oh yeah, merit-based pay is going to work wonders for you. Whenever an employee is approaching you like that, first and foremost, it kind of shows his character. And it's not bad to want to ask for a raise. It's not bad to be motivated for a raise. But we've got to set expectations of, okay, if you're wanting to make this money, this is what I need to see from you. You know, I need to see that you're showing up on time. This is the revenue that I need you to bring in each week. You know, use examples of your other employees and what key performance indicators they are hitting. And really set expectations where if you want this money, I want to give it to you, but this is what I need to see from you in order to be able to give you that. One of a great example, Alicorp Plumbing is a plumbing company I work with in Chesapeake Bay, Virginia. What he does is each technician, each van is supposed to be bringing in $1,000 a day, which is $5,000 per week. If they hit that $5,000, they get $100 bonus. If they hit $6,000, they get $150. And so he's incentivizing them to produce more, which is ultimately going to result in more money in their pocket.
Yeah. Something that we're really big on as well is lavishing your 2Xers. Cliff, I see you're in here. I know we talked about this last week. I'm kind of going in blind here, but we talked about, you know, setting up a different structure. Do you have anything that you might be able to add into here to tell Felipe? Going once.
If Cliff is out in the field, it looks like Captain Kurt over here might be able to testify to this. Kurt, if you want to unmute and give us the good news.
Yeah, I definitely want to jump in. I didn't know if it was a time for us to share or not. I noticed a couple coaches were talking, but I definitely want to jump in on this.
Yes.
Good.
All right. Well, I want to go back to the ABC player thing. I think this is where it's all rooted in. I know we talk about carrots and money motivation and spending all this time saying, hey, you need to do it this guy because he gave us an A and B or an A player versus C player situation. And we really don't have a lot of time and money to spend on people if they're not listening. That's the whole lead a horse to water, but he's not drinking. So I think the best advice for him is you got an A player over here that's doing it regardless. He's going to get those raises and stuff without asking. But you got a guy over here that's not doing those things, but asking for money. You almost got to push that guy out of there. I mean, the A player, sign him up, get him off 1090, lock that guy down because he's an MVP that's going to win money for you and help you grow. But that C player that's not doing those things, need every little baby step coach, but got his hand out for a raise. I mean, I know it's hard to find people right now, but you have to trim C players regardless of challenges and pandemics and stuff. You have to trim C players out of your team immediately.
I think that's huge, Kurt, where it's like lock down that guy and then let's set expectations with the one who we are not seeing perform to that level. And if you set expectations with him of, hey, this is what I need you to do in order to be able to make this money, and then he's still not hitting those expectations, that's when we're running the hiring system every single week so we can get him out of there and get somebody else in who's going to be as motivated.
Felipe, let's also remember, when you talk with these guys, hug, kick, hug. You got to tell him that even if everything they've been doing is not good, give him some fluff comment like, hey, look, you showed up today and that's nice. So I appreciate you. Here's some lessons. Just find something to make it nicer. But again, as we talked about, work them to their goals. So he's asking for more raises and money. So just have an honest conversation. Like, okay, well, do you think you deserve a raise? Why do you think you deserve a raise? Can you tell me specific reasons why?
And if his
then just
only
help him
reason,
figure out what those next steps are for himself to earn what he wants.
and if his only reason is because, well, I hear this other company pays blah, 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 that's not a valid reason.
Do you feel like your question's been answered, Felipe, though?
Definitely. Yes, it's been, answers have been very helpful, and definitely I'm going to take that approach now the next time, or before you even ask the question again. I'll just set up a meeting with him on site on one of the job sites, whichever one he's working on, and just have a one-on-one chat and discuss it,
Yeah.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, guys, if anybody has any questions or if you're feeling shy, anything like that, I have the link where you can book a 20-minute call with us. If your coach is not available within the next couple of days, you can book with another coach. We want to get your questions answered quickly. We want to be a resource for you guys whenever you need it. And so do not hesitate to book with us, and so that we can get your questions answered. But Harley, if you want to do the honors, sir, of closing us out the Redmond Growth way.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out to the group call. Lovely to see your faces or just your names. But you know what time it is. Unmute your microphones. We're doing a growth on 3. After 3 counts, we're saying growth. We're doing it every week. I don't care.
I think I just heard somebody sigh as soon as they unmuted their mic, Harley.
So unmute the mic. Here we go. We got a busy day, so we got to get out of here. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Bro.
Bye, guys. Have a
Cue the
wonderful
music,
week.
Bryce.